In this episode, we're going to tell you about our experiences renting on the property market in Portugal. Number 1. Where do you find properties when you're first coming to Portugal and you need to find somewhere to rent? Our favorite platform is Idealista. Idealista is probably one of the biggest across Portugal and have a number of different agencies posting properties there. So you're not going to find absolutely everything, but you're finding a good bunch of properties. Let's take a look at the platform. So when I'm coming into idealista.pt, then I always go up and choose English, as I've done here. Then I have to press rent, and here I can choose that I want homes as a standing on. Then I can type in a district. So let's say if I wanted to be in, let's just take Balam, when you know Balam. Then it shows me an area here, and then I can say, okay, I want to be on the first line near the coast, and I could press on that, and then it would show me that. Alternatively, I could also just see everything in that area, and then go up and see the 200 homes. When I get in here, it's a bit random what I get. So let's say I'm looking for a flat, and I want 2 bedrooms. So T is indicating bedrooms. So T0 is a studio, T1 is a 1 bedroom, and so on and so forth. So let's say I want a 2 bedroom or bigger. Then let's also say I am not willing to spend more than, let's just say 1,300. Then I can, for example, go up here. So if you are in a house search, I would always go on most recent, so I can see what have recently been posted. So I can then go in and see, let's take that one, that looks nice and modern. And there I can have a quick scroll through. Look out for if there's any mold or if there's anything that doesn't look very good. This look fresh and modern. So it's just literally if you like the building and the area and so on, and look like it could include parking spaces from the pictures. Let's go down and see the description. What you have to remember with the description is that it's mostly auto-translated, so a lot is lost in translation because it's just like a Google Translate that does this. But I can then read about the property. There's written quite a bit about this one. When you're speaking to an agent, you can see the reference over here under contact. You can see the details down here, which is good. And I can see that there's parking space included. There's a storeroom. All of that is like, I think, rare for Balam, rare for Lisbon. And it's updated 2 days ago. I don't know when it's posted, but I know it's updated 2 days ago. I could scroll down here, and then I can see the district, and I can see it on a map. And then also I could see how much interest others have shown just by logging in here. I'm not going to do that now. That's free to do. Also, there is a save to favorite function I'm using quite a bit here. So if there's anything I want to watch, or even if there's just something in the district and I want to know if it's flying off the shelf, then it will tell me if there's new pictures or if it's taking off. So I sort of can keep an eye on the market. When you do want to go ahead and contact the real estate agent, I would over here in the contact form, I would fill it out like something like, let's just give you a draft of what actually works. Because if you just use what it suggests, some people are not even getting back. So just say, hi there, lovely flat, would love to, if I can spell, would love to view this. Please contact me on WhatsApp. And then your phone number, so area code and everything. So if you were, for example, if you were in the UK, then put in +44 and the whole number. fill in your email again, and put in your phone number once again, just so they have it twice. So if anything is lost in the lead handling, or if someone is forwarding it within the agency, then the phone number isn't lost. I want them to be able to get hold of me. So of course I try to give them the best possible chance. If you have a quick look down here at the area at the phone number, you can see +351, that's the area code for Portugal. If the phone number had started with a 9, it doesn't do that here, but if it had started with a 9, it would mean it's a mobile phone number. And when that is the case, in about 80-90% of the cases that we have seen it, you're able to just send them a message on WhatsApp, which works very, very good, very, very well, because they get back to you almost immediately, and the conversation is a lot easier. You can also say, okay, I have booked something with this agent. Let me see if they have anything else that's interesting. And then I can go down and click on the actual agent here. And I can scroll down, and then I can see, okay, they have a lot here. Now we're going into buying, because that's what is done on default. So I go up and press rent. Okay, they have 183 flats for rent. I am losing sort of the area search here, because it's just showing me more or less everything. I can't go up here and say I only want to see Lisbon, but Lisbon is big. And I have to go again up and say, okay, I want only Lisbon. I have to go up again and then say, okay, I want only Belém. And in that way you lose a lot, but maybe a neighborhood that's very close that you don't know, you're excluding, so sometimes talk to them. But now I can say, okay, I want at least a T2, and maybe I want air conditioning, maybe that's important to me. Now I can see, okay, they have 2 other flats. Should I consider booking them? So I see 2 or 3 flats at the same time with the same agent, because if I like the agent, then it's easy for me to sort of see those flats quickly, and rule it in or out, and then you're able to make a quick decision. I don't know if you've mentioned it in any of other videos, but once we've chosen our flat, we chose that we wanted it on a Friday. The landlord said no on a Saturday, because we didn't have a guarantor, and we didn't want to make the effort of trying to get a Portuguese person to take the legal risk of us having a contract and all of that. So we just said no. The landlord said she didn't want that. And then on the Monday, she then came back and said, okay, you can have it. Anyway, I sort of looked through our things again and was quite happy with everything. And already on the Tuesday we had the keys. So things are very fast moving if everything just works out. So just bear that in mind, that if you're a bit efficient to see these, it can move very, very quickly. Also, if we just have a quick look here at different areas. So let's say I go down and have a look on a map. And I will just zoom in and see, okay, I have a look here, and I could say I want to see if I was in love with Belém, for example. Let's just say that as an example. And I could put a circle around that and say I want to see everything that is in the close proximity of that. Bang. And then I can go up and say, okay, I want a 2-bedroom or bigger. And then I want lowest price, for example. And then I can work my way up and see what is there. That's a very good way of doing it. The other thing is, once you have chosen a property and you just want to check the average price, as we're also referring to in this video, then you should go up and say, okay, if you have chosen a property, so let's say, if we just have a quick look here, and if we say maybe the property is right in the heart of Belém, so let's say it's right there. So then I would literally go up and I would take the area that's just right around it and see, okay, there's 75 homes. I am getting a 2-bedroom and I am removing everything else. Let's say that I am getting something that's between 80, it's roughly around that, so I'm comparing it fairly. And whether I have a lift or like, that's more relevant. But anyway, now I can see here, so if I go by highest price, then I can see, okay, the top of the market is around 1,500 for what that type of flat I'm looking at, and the bottom of the market is 850. So what I'm getting should be sort of in between there, depending on if we go on the lower end or the high end. Also, I can now go down on the bottom and I can see I should pay around 12 euros per square meters per month. And that gives me an indication of is what I am getting a good offer. Yeah, and then just to the final thing on Idealist's website, just because it's really good on this. If you're considering, just like we were considering up to an hour away from Lisbon, but along the coast. We did go south, but there's a limitation with the south, as there's only 2 bridges, so you can easily be caught up in traffic there. And there's many opinions about this, but what we then did was we said, okay, Cascais, Sintra, that's all beautiful, but it's a bit busy and there's a lot of expat there. We wanted to be in a more Portuguese environment, but Cascais and Sintra is also good. It's still within the hour, but we looked further up. So we looked at, for example, like Mafra, Ericeira, like 20 minutes to the coast, something like that. So what we did was something like that. And then you can see, okay, there's 75 homes there within my criteria. Remember, there's not a lot for rent because it's not a renting market, so there's more for buying. You see there's 1,700 in the same area. So you could explore areas like that. If you are just in the 1 hour, as we were, you can also go further up. So you could look maybe like another very popular areas, Penis, Obidos, Vau, Caldas de Rena. Okay, I was not drawing correctly there. Caldas de Rena, Obidos, like that, for example. And then you can see, show us a list. And you can go back and see what's for rent there. Remember, it's 52 for rent, 2,500 for sales. It's not a market where you are having a lot of rentals, so bear that in mind, especially when you get further out of Lisbon. So that's about it. Let's jump back to the video.
As well as Idealista, there are also a number of other bigger portals. So for example, Remax is a well-known brand here in Portugal. Another one is Casa Sapo. That is a great one to look for properties. We're going to leave a bunch of them down in the description box, ones that we've had good experiences with. Let's just quickly explore some of the key differences that we've uncovered whilst renting in Portugal.
Here in Portugal, you have a very different rental market. So first of all, when you find a property with an agent, the agent is most likely not exclusive. So agencies here work together and pretty much any agency can show another property. So just because you're seeing a property, it's not necessary that that agent actually have a relationship with the landlord. So also when you then have questions, sometimes they have to go through another agency that then have to ask the landlord that might not be super responsive. And then you can have like 2 or 3 days before you actually get an answer from time to time. So that is a part of what is a little bit different compared to markets like Denmark or UK, as we've tried before, that where there's more of an exclusivity once it's listed with an agent. That's not the thing here.
Unlike the UK, deposits here are not protected by a deposit scheme, which means that you are essentially passing over your money in blind trust. So there are a number of ways that you might want to seek to protect yourself.
So what you need to be careful of is, who is the landlord? Do your checks. Don't overpay deposit. So, for example, it's very normal here in Portugal to get a property that you need a guarantor, someone that will pay your bills in case that you are not paying your bills. And if you're coming here as a foreigner, that is as good as impossible to get. Maybe you can get an insurance company and stuff like that to do it, but it's a complicated and lengthy process to do that. So many expats are welcomed by landlord by telling that they have to pay 6 or 12 months rent or deposit ahead. And that money is not protected. So you need to be careful with what conditions you are agreeing on. So basically, don't overpay. Do what's reasonable. Don't do anything you're uncomfortable with. Don't do 6 and 12 months rent. There's no fully firm rules of what to do, but just don't overpay. Do what's reasonable and agree something. Even if they say no, that's okay. Just walk away. And landlord will hopefully come back and you can re-agree it.
This brings me to a great example of the place that we're currently renting. Our landlord specifically wanted a year up front. We were prepared to walk away. And in fact, we did. And a few days later, she came back to us, and we just made sure that we could satisfy her that we were good on our commitments. So what we did is we made sure that we showed her our incomings for the prior 6 months, so she could see that we were good, we were making money, we had enough, more than enough, to pay the asking price on the rent. We also made sure that we negotiated. We never intend to pay list price. So we negotiated on the rent and made sure that we were comfortable with the deal that we were getting. The moral of the story here is, in order to satisfy the owner or the landlord that you are good on the rent without a guarantor, without paying 6 to 12 months in advance, is to really over-prepare with your paperwork. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
So basically, renting an apartment here, when it's not regulated, when you can't do credit checks and all of that, it's basically relationships. So you need to prepare in a way that you can give another human the trust that you're actually able to pay your bill and you're going to fulfill the commitment of the contract. And that's how simple it is. So to have like proof of earnings, explanation of how you're making your money, what do you do, how are you going to keep doing that after moving to Portugal? If you, for example, have savings, maybe show a proof of some savings. So again, they can see, okay, this person have a list of different ways that where they can fulfill the contract that we are about to create together. And when you can go into it with that confidence, most landlords will be able to come to an agreement that both of you can be satisfied with. Another thing you can think of here is that because it's relationship, your story have to make sense. So if you already have maybe references from previous landlords, if you just sold a house or whatever it could be, just like your story have to make sense. So prepare also in paperwork that you can like stuff too much information in their face, of that they can be satisfied that, okay, this person's story makes sense, I trust this person. So in that way, they don't have to ask too many questions and you don't get a no too quickly, because you are sort of overfeeding them more information that they've asked for to sort of get that comfort feeling that, okay, they are going to fulfill the contract that we agree.
The property industry is very much a relationship business. So the more that you can build a relationship with an agent that you might have something in common with, the better. If you can develop a close bond, since we've been here, we've developed a bond with a number of agencies who we can now call our friends. And I think that's so important, because you will feel like, they have more of they're more invested in you. So they will listen to you about what your needs are, and you don't have to go through a painful process of seeing lots and lots of properties, none of them to your exact specification. So definitely invest the time, because I promise it will be worth it.
When you're renting an apartment, it is crucial that you have your NIF number, your tax ID for Portugal. And the reason for that is that you can't take on any of the utility bills, the gas, the water, the internet. You can't take on all those contracts unless you have a NIF. So what we did was, we didn't have the NIF when we got the contract, and we then had to sort it out very quickly afterwards, so we could take over the contracts, and all of that is all attached to the tax ID number. So if you can sort that out prior to you getting your rental property, that would be the absolute best.
Just continuing that point on taking on utility bills, if you do need help with the translations and getting set up with your utility bills, most real estate agents would be happy to translate on your behalf. Again, back to that point on building relationships. So with our agency who we worked with, she was more than happy to call the utility companies on our behalf, set everything up. I gave them authorization over the phone to speak to her, and everything was smooth. Our search for a rental property was a little bit trickier. The reason why is because we have, when we moved here, our youngest was 2. So we had to pay close consideration to the safety. So we saw lots of beautiful properties, very fortunate. We saw lots of great apartments, but the problem was for us is that, it just wasn't safe. There were stairs, there were sort of beautiful glass decorations, and there's just no way we could have lived there. The process will be easier for you if you have older kids or if you don't have children at all. For us, what we decided to do was to get out of Lisbon, as we've discussed before, and explore places that were on the coast from Lisbon all the way to Cascais and further afield. So that's how we sort of started looking. The thing for us was having space and areas that weren't too busy, where our kids could get out and enjoy nature and we weren't under each other's feet.
Let's talk neighborhoods. So once you have found out where you actually want to be, you maybe have found an area that you do like, the actual neighborhood of the property that you're then going to find, there's some things you have to consider before you're going ahead and signing the contract. So first of all, map it out. How convenient is it for you in reality? Are you going to have a car? If not, you need to make sure that there's public transport that suits your needs. How close is the nearest supermarket and those kind of basic things. If you're going to work from home, you need to make sure that there's fiber optic internet. So check there's a fiber optic thing in the wall so you know that there's fiber optic internet there, or go into the Vodafone's website or Meo's website and make sure they have fiber optic internet, because you're going to be needing that for doing your remote work if you're working from home or planning to. So then from that point, then you also need to check out the neighborhood at different times of day. How busy is it at night, for example? If you're right next to a restaurant, maybe there's a lot of street noise there. You need to make sure you're okay with that. Maybe there's a lot of barking dogs. So go and visit the neighborhood multiple times and make sure that you are happy with what it is and how it looks at different times of the week. So you will feel comfortable once you've moved in. Then this is not so much neighborhood, but still a little bit. If you're going into an older building, so if you're going into a building that might be 20 plus years old, and it's like an apartment, you have to consider that some of your neighbors might be doing renovations. That can be quite a challenge if you are a light sleeper, because we had, this was for when we was having one of our short-term accommodation in Airbnb, but we were staying in a lofty building that's probably 40 years old, and the neighbor on top was deciding to do renovations between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., which was keeping my wife awake for the majority of the time, because she wakes up if just about a needle drops to the floor. So just think about that these things could happen. Your neighbor could decide to start renovating, for example, and not all walls and ceilings are very thick or well isolated. So that is just something to bear in mind if you're going into an older building. If you don't know exactly where you're going to be living, for example, if you have decided that you're going to move to Lisbon, just like we did, then you have to, as soon as you hit the airport, go down, rent a car for a month and an Airbnb for a month. You can see our video about how we relocated here under a pandemic, but in short, go and scout around areas. Go to all the local towns. Go out of Lisbon. Go north. Go south. Go to the coast. Go into the country and go and explore. Maybe even see some properties along the way, so you can see the quality of properties, the type of areas. Go and have plenty of coffee. We've driven through areas, not given it a chance, written it off, and then 2 weeks later fallen in love with the area. So you have to allow yourself to invest into it, see the people, talk to the people, go through a supermarket, just go to different restaurants, just buy into it, and really get to know some of the areas. That's how you will find some of the hidden gems that you're probably going to enjoy a lot more than the heart of Lisbon, for example.
What we did is, after seeing a number of disappointing properties, what we decided to do was come up with our own list of qualifying questions, because what we want to avoid is wasting anyone's time and also wasting our own time. So we came up with a list of things that we would ask the real estate agent before we'd even leave home. So these include things like, we asked the real estate agent to confirm the exact location this property is in. What's in the neighbourhood? Is there anything being built around the property? Are there any new builds coming up? Bearing in mind that when there's building projects going on around where you live, not only do you have the noise, but you have so much dust. And my lovely husband suffers from allergies, so with the best will in the world, I do not want to listen to him sneezing all day, every day. So that's really a key point for us. Another point is, what are the types of amenities around the area for kids? Are there local parks? How far is it to the nearest beach, for example? That's a strong consideration for us. The other thing we do, and you might think that it's a bit of an odd one, but we always ask about mold. So mold is a bit of an issue, as we've mentioned in one of our other videos. So we quite upfront with the agent, is there any mold in the property? Are there any signs of it, whether visibly or can you smell it? For us, another important consideration was how far the property is from the school that we had in mind. If you haven't yet chosen a school, it's definitely something you might want to look at before you actually put roots down, which is what we did. We actually were staying in an Airbnb at the point that we found a school. And then once we'd found the school, we knew roughly the radius in which we were prepared to look. And it made the search so much easier for us once we knew roughly the types of areas that we want to be in. And then we'll take that on now, knowing the areas we want to be, into the buying process, which we'll be looking at down the road. It's also important to be very specific about what style you're looking for. So what type of properties do you like? Do you want more traditional? Do you want something that's more contemporary? Do you want something new build? What's important to you? Definitely make sure that before you go out to see a property, that the property lives up to the listing. And it's important that you ask all of these questions up front. When were the pictures taken? Who is the landlord? Is the landlord Portuguese or is the landlord overseas somewhere? Will you be able to get hold of them if there's a problem? Definitely something to think about. Another important thing to think about is, has the agent seen the property with their own eyes? As we know, there can be multiple agents on one listing. So often an agent will take you to a property, but they've never seen it and they don't know much about it. So it's always interesting to find out upfront if they're going to be able to answer your questions and if they've seen it already. And in that way, they're able to tell you much more, give you lots more details about the property. Another important thing, and I think this is me being a little bit self-serving, but I'm always cold and I need my heating in the winter months. So another important question for us is, firstly, does the property have central heating? Yes or no? What's the answer to that? And if no, we have to look at how well insulated the property is. The other thing which we've mentioned on another video was about the cost of central heating. So some of our lovely subscribers have given us some suggestions on the types of heating that we should be looking for. In an ideal scenario, you should be looking for a place, if it's important to you, with an air conditioning unit that can also heat, electricity based, and that I hear on good faith that that's the best way to go.
This also means that if you're getting into a place without central heating, and if the place is a bit older, and you're just planning, I'm just going to heat this up with electric heaters, that plan can sound all good and well, but for example, if you live close to maybe the coast and you get that cold wind from the Atlantic Ocean, you just face that it's quite hard to heat up because there's not much electricity in many of the older flats. So what we've seen in some of the Airbnbs we've stayed in is that the fuse constantly goes off because you try to put the heating on while you're cooking, and then you suddenly over the 30 or 45 ampere you can get into the flat, and then everything you have to go and turn your heating off if you want to cook. This is not a problem with many of the places, but if you're going into an older building, it can be a problem. So ask the right questions. Make sure that you are sort of well prepared to what you're going into. And we have stayed very close to in a very lovely flat, very close to the beach. But even in October, it started to be very cold, and small electric heaters just wasn't enough. We were constantly cold. It was probably also a little bit of bad weather for October, but just bear it in mind.
We're going to leave a list of questions that you might find useful that we ask real estate agents down below in the description box.
When you're getting to the stage of where you actually want to sign the contract, there's a number of things that you need to check. For example, in our contract, our address was wrong, and the description of what was included in the flat, such as a deposit room, wasn't on the contract. And it was all in Portuguese. So what we did there was we took the contract that we got from the real estate business, and we could put it into Google Translate, upload the document, and then we could get an idea about what the contract said, and then ask all the right questions up front. So we didn't have any sort of hidden knowledge about what the contract was saying. Furthermore, we took the NIF number of the landlord and checked that it matched up with the name. There is a NIF search engine where you can see those kind of things. You can see it's valid, and I also think it verified the name. Second, you need to check the bank account that it is from Portugal. You don't want to be sending the rent out of Portugal, because if there was anything legal matter, or that let's say the bank have taken over the property because the landlord hasn't paid the mortgage or whatever, you want everything to have happened within the country, so you're not like wiring the money to Spain or France or Italy or wherever else the landlord could possibly be. So make sure that everything happens within the country, so everything is see-through.
The other thing to say is that definitely consider whether you want to take on an unfurnished property, because it can be quite costly to furnish a home. Even if you were going to IKEA it and do the whole thing IKEA, costs still do add up. However, if you are the savvy ones who are able to travel light and you are thinking you will buy stuff when you arrive in Portugal, what I'm going to do is make sure that you have a good start, and I'm going to list a number of furniture stores that you can go to furnish your place.
When you're looking at properties and you're looking at things that are furnished or unfurnished, so let's say you want a furnished property, then you will realize there's not many of them. Second of all, your second frustration will be that there's not many things for rental, because Portugal is one of those countries where most people, the majority of people in Portugal, own their property. So renting is not a thing in the same way as we know it from countries like UK, for example, where going to the property ladder is something that some people never manage to do across a whole life. And that's not the thing in Portugal. So what you have to bear in mind is that there's not necessarily much on it, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad area with bad houses. There can still be brilliant houses in the area, but they just might maybe only be for sale. So another trick, that if you really have fallen in love with an area and you just can't find a rental, maybe look at what's for sale, and maybe you can agree with an owner that can't sell their house at the moment, that maybe you can rent their house from them. So you in that way can do workarounds, because many people that own a house can be convinced if they're not desperate to sell the house, or if they realize that it's going to take some time. So it's better than it standing empty. Especially when you're talking about Lisbon. There is many flats that is bought with the purpose of getting a visa. So because of the golden visa, people are buying a flat, and then for whatever reason they don't really use it, and then they pop it on Airbnb. And because of COVID, many of them then want to do long-term rent. And what we have seen with many of those is that they have been used for Airbnb a lot, and they need modernization, they need to be renovated, the furniture is generally worn out, and the pictures that was uploaded to Idealista was probably when it was made completely new 5, 7, 10 years ago. So bear that in mind, that when you're going for furnished properties, then that can be what is meeting you. When you're finding a flat, before accepting the contract, always question the price. So make sure that it's reasonable price for the area, and make sure that it's priced at a point where the local market also can afford it. Because especially if you're talking about Lisbon or expat areas, then some of them might be foreign owners and think that they can charge maybe double the price of what it's actually worth. And that is bad because of two reasons. First of all, we price the local out. So when you're bringing our expat income from outside of Portugal, which will be higher than the local incomes in many cases, then we will force the market up, which is negative for the local market, because we're pricing the local Portuguese people out. So as expats, we need to take a responsibility on that. Second of all, it's just sort of a tourist trap, an expat trap that you can fall into, just because you think, okay, this is not expensive in central London, for example, but now you are in central Lisbon, it might have to be 30-50% lower than what you have seen in central London, for example. So bear that in mind, do your research. For example, when you found something, go back to Idealista, type in the area as close to the proximity, put in all the specs, like if it's 2-bedroom, if it has a garden or whatever, like put in all the specs so you get as close to it. In the bottom of it, you can see the average square meter price, and in that way you get a good indication of if it's far off the radar or if it's in a good range of what it needs to be. And if it is too high, or if you just think it's a little too high for your budget, do try to negotiate and just offer 20-40% lower, whatever the case is. Sometimes it's just a couple of €100 lower you need to bid, but just do your research and see what makes sense, so you get the best deal for yourself.
Absolutely. We were vying with a Portuguese person on whether we'd get it. And the only reason why we got it over the Portuguese person is because they wanted, it's a furnished property, and they wanted to take a lot of the furniture out, which was a little bit of an inconvenience for the owner. So we just pipped them at the post. But fortunately, there are many, many properties in our local area. So hopefully that person's sorted now.
Yeah. And also what you can say about the place that we have chosen to live is that I think pretty much all of our neighbors are Portuguese.
Yeah.
So we have carefully made sure that we are not sort of feeding the expat trap of pricing the market unrealistic high.
We hope that you found this video useful. Please, if you've got anything to say, if you've got experience in renting, or you're a real estate agent and you've got some feedback, please drop it below. We'd love as much feedback as possible, and we'd love many different people to contribute towards making it a great experience for anyone who wants to rent in Portugal.
Also, if you have any questions, anything that you think that we haven't covered, we've gone through all of our experiences we could get out of our head right now. But if there's something that we haven't covered that you would like to know, please let us know in the comments as well, because we are using the comments as inspiration to future content. As you can see in all of our other videos, we answer almost all comments. We read them all. We see your feedback, so we are living from your feedback to create our future content. So please comment.
Definitely. And there will be more things about property in the pipeline coming up, and we can't wait to share it with you all. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.